Hello there, this is Susan McCord at the Augusta Chronicle, and today we are interviewing Varden Bobby Williams. He is a candidate in the special election for District 5 on the Augusta Commission. And Dr. Williams will maybe give you a couple of minutes to introduce yourself, and then we will start asking questions. And for those of you who are following along, feel free to submit questions in the comments. And Dr. Williams?
Good afternoon. I'm Bobby Williams, candidate for the 5th District. I like to say I think what separates me from the other candidates is my leadership skills. And I think that's my strength that I believe that the school system brought to me as a principal, as an administrator, assistant principal, teacher, coach. And I believe that with me being the president of the Medical Associates Plus medical group, I have gained many skills. I'm looking at data, making decisions for growth for medical associates. We went from a one trailer community to now about 7 entities. We have a $4 million building on Golden Camp Road. We just purchased the old Social Security building where we do infectious disease control. We have primary care in Blythe and Rennes. We're now expanding to Burke County. We also have a pediatrician, Dr. Kapui, and we also do pulmonary care over at Doctors Hospital, much of that under my leadership. So I've been in leadership positions. I believe I can bring a lot to the commission, to the 5th District, but more so to Augusta. I'm a lifelong Augustan. I grew up here. I started my career in education over 30 years ago, retiring as a principal from Glen Hills High School, ready to serve.
And you mentioned Medical Associates Plus. We're somewhat familiar. How long have you been with that organization?
I've been with Medical Associates Plus 12 years now. Started as a board member, and I've been the chair of the board for the last year and a half, I think.
And you mentioned your leadership. Now, you're wanting to be one of 10 on the commission that are, I guess they make decisions and they kind of set the course for the government. I mean, what do you see as the role of an individual commissioner in running the city?
I think first and foremost, a commissioner needs to look at the roles of each person when it comes to whether it's human resources, whether or not it's maintenance department, or recreation department. Look at sometimes making decisions on their budgets, the people, their resources, looking at infrastructure in the community. I think we also have to look at whether or not we're doing what is proper and right for each of the communities, making policies and procedures that are fair to each of the citizens, looking at, for instance, our trash services, looking at award services, and making decisions to help with the growth of Augusta. I look at the waterfront, can it be better? I think so. I look at transportation, I think it can be better. I understand at one point in time we were looking at something like a whitewater park type situation. I think that would be something that we could bring to Augusta. I think Augusta being the second largest city in Georgia, if I'm correct, we should be a little bit better than we are.
One of the primary roles of the commission is, to approve the budget. I mean, do you know how much the city's annual budget is approximately?
No, I looked at it a couple of weeks ago, and I'm not remembering exactly what it is at this point in time.
I think the overall budget is about $800 million. The general fund budget, which is the commission has more control over, I believe, is about $170 million.
Okay.
Do you have any thoughts on how the budget is funded? Are there areas that should receive more funding, or some that might need less?
Well, I think that when I look at the services in the community, I wonder, and I need to do a little bit more research and look at data. Look at if our services are being funded properly. I'm looking at transportation. Should transportation be given more money? I look at maintenance of each of the communities. Should that be given more money? I look at, as I said before, projects around the community when we're looking at the waterfront. I'm looking at streets, like I said, infrastructure. We still have many streets that have potholes. And we have areas that are blighted and, just need to be cut. I look at some areas, as I said, blighted, and maybe they could be changed into green areas. Maybe we need to put more money into parks and recreation, which is a fading entity in our community. I think that overall, more money into services in the communities.
So put more money into providing services?
Services in the communities. Whether it's sidewalks, and I know some of that comes from federal money and grants, but sidewalks, potholes, brush being cut back, simple services. People want to see things done in their communities that will make a difference in their everyday lives. We know we want businesses, especially in the 5th District, businesses, we want more restaurants, but I think just services that make a difference every day.
Okay, here in Augusta we also have this large amount of federal and state investment in this cyber here. What are, as a prospective commissioner, what are your thoughts on that development, and how would city government maybe try to enhance that?
Well, I think cyber is great. We have to look at, and I talked about being outside the box when we did the forum on the 12th, and I think cyber is part of that outside the box thinking. I think it brings jobs to the community. With cyber, I know that it's going to enhance many of the technological services that we have here in Augusta, Georgia. I think with the commission, I think it is our job to be committed to massaging that entity to help it grow. I understand that there's some things that we're supposed to do in helping the cyber site be completed. I think there's a walkway or something that needs to be approved or something like that. So I think it's great.
Parking deck.
Parking deck,
and
okay.
That walkway, I think maybe it was already in the works. Okay, yeah. Innovation, I guess, is a word you hear thrown around a good bit.
True.
What do you think about innovation?
Well, innovation is great. I think we need to take advantage of all the technological advances, whether it's through media, whether it's through just our traffic system, whether it's with communications, whether it's security. All those innovations will help us here in Augusta, Georgia.
Well, an issue that's gotten a lot of press lately is the lock and dam, and hopefully you've been following that a little bit. If you were on the commission right now, what would you want to do to address that issue that has so much community concern?
Well, I think I would try to save it. I understand that the Corps of Engineers don't think it's worth saving, but I think it is. I think we need to put the money into it to try to save the lock and dam. I understand that, there is a situation where they just want to put a rock bed or something in there. I don't think so. And I think lock and dam is something like a historic site in our community that we want to see to continue. So if I were commissioner, I would do all that I could possibly do to keep lock and dam.
Any idea what that might be? I mean, I think the cost is pretty high. It would, especially if the city would have to pay for that, or even part of it. I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars.
Well, I would have to do a little bit more research into that to see exactly what it would cost if it's cost effective.
And so you talk about your leadership experience in the school system. I mean, how would that transfer over to a commission?
Well, I think one, commissioners have to sit and listen to situations and make decisions. I think I've been on every kind of school board or in every kind of situation that calls for making tough decisions. I think they have to look at research and make decisions based on data. I've done that. I think that many times you have to look at some type of strategic plan or make some type of strategic plan, and that calls for our input. I've done that all my career. I think that many times you have to speak with form committees to take a look at different situations. I've done that all my career, and more so than anything, I've been in situations where I've had to galvanize people to look at situations or meet and either agree or disagree to do something to move forward, to try to revitalize or improve or do some type of situation where we have to look at whether or not something's feasible to move forward. So I've done all of that, which is a lot of what I would have to do as a commissioner. Of course, as an administrator, I had to be visible. I think commissioners need to be visible in their communities. I think commissioners need to be people that walk around and look at exactly what's going on in the community, whether they have potholes, whether they have brush that needs to be cut back, or what can we do to get a business in this particular area, or what have you. So being visible, talking to the constituents, actually leading by doing.
Would you be visible to, say, city employees? I mean, are you going to be there while they're supposed to be doing their jobs?
Well, yeah, I don't want to get over into operations, but if there's a situation where a citizen asked me to come by and take a look at something, I can come by and take a look at something, but not actually getting over into an operational type area.
And so District 5, like so many, I guess I would imagine, is probably a good many retired type folks. I mean, how would you characterize your District 5 electorate?
Well, like you said, District 5 is somewhat mixed. You have quite a few older people in the population in District 5. But take, for instance, my neighborhood, Belmead. One thing about Belmead is that very few people move out. So right there where I live, I'm probably the youngest person. I'm 54, and most of the people around me are probably late 60s, 70s, and headed toward 80. And but we do have pods of young folks that live in District 5. And so it's a very mixed bag of people. If I should say bag, I don't think so. But they're a great mixture of people in District 5. But I think you do have quite a few older people because many have lived in South Augusta for years and just have not moved out.
And so Bellmead and Bell Terrace, about how many households that is?
In Bellmead, Bell Terrace, I looked at the numbers, and it roughly about 7,000-8,000, I believe.
Okay. I mean, it seems like with, I think at least two of the candidates, or is it three?
Reverend Few lives not far from me, so he lives in that area also.
So I guess three of you live in that
area.
neighborhood. And are you currently the president of the neighborhood?
I'm president of the neighborhood association. Yes, and he was previous president of the neighborhood association.
Okay, so it's probably going to play a pretty big role. Can you talk about something maybe you did with the neighborhood association that might transfer over to the commission?
Well, I think one thing, and I became president of the neighborhood association back in November, and one thing that I am trying to do is galvanize the people in that area of Bellmead, Bell Terrace, to start the numbers attending the meetings are decent, not like they used to be. 30 years ago, you would walk in the room and you would have standing room only. So we're trying to get back to a situation where we get all of our residents attending. So one thing I've tried to do is we talked about cyber and innovation and technology, but making sure that we use all types of media to notify people about meetings and doing some things, clean up. We scheduled a cleanup for the neighborhood. We scheduled a bus trip looking at the citizens in the community with a bus trip, and then we talked about doing some a music outing where we have someone to come in like they do down the River Watch. In other words, what we're trying to do is put in place situations that would get the people to come back out, get them connected, get them, talking like they did 30 years ago. In other words, galvanize the people to come back together, be unified, as I talked about on February 12th, be unified in getting together and talking about the issues. We can come together and do a bus trip, but that's to get people to come together and talk. And then we can talk about the issues that we really need to talk about to get them going in the right direction. So as far as with the county commission, one thing I talked about on February 12th during the forum is people being unified. I think the question was, what would be your biggest challenge? And I said, people are coming together, being unified. Talked about making some type of strategic plan, having some priorities or what have you, all of us writing letters to whoever we need to write letters to, or if you need to come to commission chambers to talk to the commissioners and what have you. But unity and unification.
Definitely. I mean, citywide, what can be done to kind of bring, the city's various neighborhoods together? I mean, they're definitely not. They're kind of.
I think eventually there needs to be some type of summit situation where the different communities can come and sit down and talk about their needs, their wants, what it is they think the future of Augusta should be, and not just needs and wants, but how can we continue to grow in this community, and that would be all communities, not just the 5th District, but all the different districts. But maybe some type of summit to sit down and talk about, indifferences and how we are alike and what we can do for the different districts.
I'm not seeing a lot of questions come in over Facebook, but there's There's still time, y'all. What would you say sets you apart from the other three candidates, besides what you have already talked about today?
Well, I would like to say, and I really can't get inside of their brains, but I'm really truly running for the community. I truly care about what happens, how every person fares in the 5th District, not just the 5th District, all of Augusta. Because I realize that when I make a decision or a vote on something, I'm not just making it for the 5th District, I'm making it for all of Augusta. I've been in leadership positions. I've been in the positions where, and I'm still with Medical Associates Plus, positions where I've held a lot of influence or power, if you would say. So that's not why I'm running. I'm running because I really do believe that District 5 in Augusta deserves someone who's going to make a decision based on the merit, based on the research, based on the data, based on if this is something that we need, and a decision made objectively in helping Augusta grow with out-of-the-box thinking. So I think I kind of separated myself at the last forum when I talked about being outside the box and not just making comfortable decisions that will just keep us running, but decisions that may eventually help us spur some growth, more growth than we already have.
And as far as the internal operations of the government, do you feel like it's running pretty well? Are there areas for improvement, besides potholes and sidewalks?
Well, I would say it seems to be running well, but if I look at my district, I believe that more decisions can be made to improve the 5th District and, in general, Augusta. So as far as the inner workings are concerned, I'm not truly familiar, as I said before, this is my first time running for government, truly familiar with all of the inner workings that go into making some of these decisions. But if you just look at the outcome, or should I say the result, or should I say a lack of results in the 5th District, I think we can always have room for improvement.
So coming up, I know the public safety unions are going to be, I think, interviewing y'all and maybe doing an endorsement. How do you see the role of these organizations, and is there something you would do for public safety workers kind of as a group if you're elected?
I think I owe it to each of them to make decisions that give them a fair wage. I think I owe it to them to make a decision that would give them fair health care and benefits. I think that in general, we should make sure that police officers, our firefighters, EMS people are taken care of. And I know sometimes we make decisions, our decisions have been made and they don't think they're being paid enough or what have you. But I think we need to make sure they're taken care of so that they don't leave and go to Columbia County. They don't leave and go to North Augusta. So I'm all for making sure that people are treated fairly. Yes, ma'am.
There are a couple other, I guess, big programs in place around. We have the stormwater fee. Wasn't universally well received. How do you think that program is?
Are you asking me as a candidate or as a resident?
Well, both.
Yeah. As a candidate, I think that sometimes we have to make hard decisions. I think that, like the parking fee that they're looking at, I think the stormwater fee may have been a necessity at this time. I'm not privy to all of the information that went into making those decisions. I know some years back they were talking about shortfalls in certain areas being funded here in Augusta, so I'm not sure if those fees came about because of those things. But I would tell you that if elected and I see that those are not fees that are necessary, then I would fight them. So, but sometimes you have what they call a necessary evil. And sometimes we're going to be taxed to make sure that we don't have shortfalls. I'm not sure because I'm not privy to the information that went into making these decisions. But I would tell you that if the decisions are those that were not necessarily needed, then as a commissioner, I would have voted against them.
Yeah, I guess the circumstances were that, there was very little money budgeted for maintenance for whatever reason, and now with the fee, there's an extra $15 million a year that can be used for
Yes, ma'am.
a lot of that stuff. I guess also in the works and very popular now is the Transportation Investment Act sales tax that's gone into all these road projects, and they're preparing for a second 10-year tax. I mean, how do you think that program has gone?
Well, I think we've seen some progress from that. My street, Bellmead Drive, they started paving that a couple of weeks ago. So I think to get some things done, we're going to have some taxes. And as a commissioner, I would just have to make some tough decisions if we want to get some things done. We can't say, we want that tree to cut down and don't, and not have any money to pay people to cut it down. We're going to have to get it some kind of way, and sometimes it's going to call for taxation. But if it's not necessary, we wouldn't vote for it. But if it is necessary, then we would have to in order to get some things done.
So your street, they just started paving it just recently?
A couple of weeks ago, yes, ma'am.
Do you remember the last time it was paved?
40 years ago. So.
What kind of, was it in pretty bad shape?
It needed quite a bit, yeah. Potholes and, yeah, needed some work.
Congratulations.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
We all use city streets, and
exactly.
we know what they can be like. Anything else you want to touch on that we haven't today?
Well, I really can't think of anything. They talked about transportation. We had a question about transportation the other night, and I said I think we have a decent bus system, but I would like to see something like a monorail or something here in Augusta, Georgia. I walked through, I've been canvassing the neighborhoods, and I would like to see something done with the dilapidated houses. And I think the city should actually buy those up, and maybe rent those out. And see, we talked about the taxation. If the city were to take control of those and maybe collect rent or sell those homes, then that would be money in the city coffers every month. That would probably lower some of our taxes, and maybe we could do away with the stormwater fee. Maybe we can do away with some of the other taxations. Maybe we would have free trash service, but and allow the city to buy more equipment. And I played a lot of softball. Went to school on baseball scholarship, and then after not being able to play baseball anymore, I played softball. And that brings to mind that, and I think I mentioned earlier, the Recreation and Parks Department, I think it costs a team $300, $400, $500, and then a fee for each person. Now, it wasn't that way a long time ago. And so, I'm not sure exactly what's happening with our park services, but the teams are going away because of all the fees. And I'm not sure if that's a situation that we need to take a look at. But going back to the houses, someone asked about jobs and contracts for small companies. I remember we had a rehab system here in Augusta years ago. They would rehab the homes, and the small contractors would bid on the homes and then rehab the homes. So small contractors would get some work, and then they would hire more people. We were looking at jobs. And I think I mentioned another thing. In our community, I want to be known as the commissioner for the community. In some of our communities, like Belmead, where I stay, Butler Manor, Woodlake, these are old neighborhoods that at one time, and they're still pretty good, but at one time were thriving neighborhoods. But we didn't have the luxury of a homeowners association like some of the others. So I talked about trying to bring to fruition some type of homeowner association that when people rent, lease, buy, they have to sign some type of agreement allowing them to making them aware of the I would say policy procedures for that particular neighborhood, and making sure that code enforcers come out and help enforce those homeowners bylaws. And what would happen is that if people were fined, then maybe we have some type of account, downtown with the administrative office, and then funnel the money back to the homeowners associations and to help, with the areas themselves. And I think I walked around and I was really baffled at how much blight we had. And the ideal I came up with a couple of things. One is maybe we can make some walking tracks in some of these neighborhoods that don't have the luxury of having a Brigham Center right around the corner. And then maybe we can make some green areas in some of these neighborhoods to get rid of some of the blight, and maybe put some tables there. But a couple of things I thought of. One, in thinking about the school system, two things I think the city can do. One, with all these dilapidated houses in these neighborhoods, and talking about kids not having anywhere to go, why not take and connect in some way to the library system, take one of these homes and make like a reading center in some of these areas, and that could be part of our contribution to education in our community. I'm not sure if we have some type of reading program, but we could fund it maybe with a grant, and then we would have volunteers to come in, but have something in each of these communities. I also think that with the way the school system contracts are written now, the contract that Richmond County signed with the state, it's called a flex something agreement, where you don't have to necessarily have a certification in certain areas. You could have someone, let's say in our maintenance department, who reads blueprints, could go into the school system and teach a class teaching kids how to read blueprints or something for construction. And or you may have somebody who works in the Maybe an accounting office who actually has a degree in social studies or a degree in English language arts, and may be able to contribute maybe 1 or 2 hours during the school day, and so there are a lot of things running around in my head that I think I could use to help the community and try to think outside the box.
I mean, you mentioned the dilapidated properties.
Mm-hmm.
The Augusta Land Bank, I guess, has acquired, hundreds of these blighted properties. It seems like maybe a lot of them have asbestos, so there's a high demolition expense, and there's also a lot of legal expense in tracking down these owners who might be grandchildren, living in New York, whatever. I don't really know why these things that you're suggesting, reading center or something, those ideas just haven't really ever come up.
Well, I did 30 plus years in education, and we always giving kids programs and telling them to go home and use their internet. And then they do have some programs where you can buy internet, but I do think that maybe if you had some type of reading center that has maybe internet in it, books in it, it may give the kids somewhere to go to read books. They can call a safe place, and they can use the internet there. But that's just another way of investing in our neighborhoods.
And we talk about kids. Another big issue right now is, is maintenance at some of these rec centers, and apparently an issue that actually caused the death of a child not too long ago. I mean, what's going on there, and what should the city do about this situation and this child?
Well, I think they've have some companies come in and do research and look at everything that needs to be shored up. I think there needs to be periodic, and I just can't imagine that they don't, but periodic checks, the electrical system outlets, and inspection of the fields and what have you. I'm not really privy to any negotiations or whatever with the family. I would imagine that there's probably something going on as far as trying to make sure the family is taken care of, and I believe that the city will be fair with them if there is. So I do think that for the future and safety of our kids, that there is inspection, especially I would say make sure before each season, football season, soccer season, anyone using any of those fields, well, for any of our facilities, whether it's inside playing basketball, some of our gyms have things that protrude from time to time, what have you, make sure that those are taken care of, or that they have the proper padding to surround it to make sure that our kids are safe. I think a lot of it can be prevented. And I think if we do periodic checks, then we could prevent a lot of injuries.
I mean, as a principal, I imagine there are a lot of routine things that were done at the school. Just what type of things would have been done just to kind of?
Well, every morning I walk through the school. Every morning I'm looking in every classroom, every hallway. Walk to the kitchen and look in. I would say, hey, good morning to my lunchroom staff. I would always make sure I was at work at least 30 to 45 minutes before anybody got there. I would always walk around the perimeter and then walk through the school And I would also do the same thing in the afternoon to make sure that things were safe and secured. I would pull on each door. So I think if that would have been done, there's a very great possibility that could have been avoided.
And I don't think there's much of a requirement to be on the commission. Maybe it's a high school diploma, but I imagine you're the only candidate probably with a college degree, probably with an advanced degree as well.
I have 5 degrees.
Okay, wow.
I have a bachelor, master's. I have a bachelor's in criminal justice, a master's in education. I have a specialist degree in educational leadership, another specialist degree in administration and leadership, and then a doctoral degree in educational leadership.
And so how would that education possibly, set you apart from the other candidates?
I think without knocking anyone else, I think my education says that I've had varied experiences in the educational field that they possibly have not. I've had quite a bit of experience at writing improvement plans, strategic plans, program evaluation plans, as well as I've been tried and tested, and they made sure I could read and write and all those other good things. But it also has allowed me to acquire the leadership experience that I have, being that educational administration was a requirement for assistant principal as well as principal. And I was also director of alternative education in Burke County. So it opened a lot of doors for me to get the actual leadership experience I had.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Williams, for coming in today. If you'd like to maybe say a couple of words just to close out. This is Susan McCord at the Augusta Chronicle. We've been live today with Dr. Bobby Williams. He is a candidate in the March special election for District 5 on the Augusta Commission. And Dr. Williams?
Yes, I'm Bobby Williams. I am a candidate for the 5th District Commission seat. I'm a lifelong Augusta. Started my career in education over 30 years ago in Richmond County, retiring as a high school principal. I have strong leadership ability that I acquired while working in the school system. I will use that and put it to good use as your commissioner. Vote Bobby Williams, March 19th. Thank you.